Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah. Today we are knitting a shower scrubby. Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah. I'm here with Knitting Natter to help you learn to knit the easy way. We are knitting the shower scrubby today because it's knit along time. Knit along started yesterday. There is time to just get in under the wire if you want the knitting kit or the pattern, because we have the knit and natter for the knit along at the end of this week. If you get your kit before then I'll let you in. Okay, so let's start knitting the shower scrubby. We're going through the first stages of knitting the scrubby today. We're going to be finishing it next week. The idea is that you've got time to get everything knitted, and then we do the finishing a week later. Of course, if you're in the future, because YouTube time travels, then of course you can just go straight into the next video. And do remember, if you need to pause it, stop it and return later, then of course thanks to the video option of pausing and stopping, you can do that. So feel free to do it. You don't have to watch it all at once. But as a knitter myself, and as someone who's done a lot of digital courses, I do find it helpful to watch the whole thing through. So I know what's happening, and then I can return and watch the block that I need. Timestamps are below, so if you want to return at any time and say, I only need that bit, click on the timestamp that's in the description for that particular part of the knit, and it will take you directly to it. So let's get to it. Let's start knitting the shower scrubby. Okay, we are knitting the shower scrubby today. This is the sample that's finished. We are going to be knitting this one up in blue. Okay, so what you can do is choose to use either long circular needles. This is an 80 centimetre fixed circular, or like I'm going to, you may want to use straight needles, single pointed needles. I'm actually preferring these. When I knitted this original one, I used these single pointed needles, and I was quite happy knitting them up like that. So I'm going to use these on camera. You make your own choice, obviously. So these are 5.5mm needles, and this is Rowan Summerlight DK yarn. All of this is available in the shop. You can get just the yarn, you can get the whole kit, come and get the pattern individually as well, but if you get the kit or the pattern, then you'll be joining the knit along. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start with a slip knot, as with most things, and we're going to start off with just a small length of yarn, say 10-12 inches, and we're going to make the slip knot like this. So yarn wraps around the 2 fingers of your left hand near the tips, and then again around the knuckles, and then you move your needle underneath the first loop and you pull that second loop through, so you get your slip knot. Now when you pull the short length, you can tighten that up at any point when you're knitting. So we need 16 stitches to start. I'm going to do that now. So we have, the needle goes through that first stitch into that front part of the loop, yarn goes around, pull that loop through, and from the front of that we put that stitch straight onto the left hand needle. Now I'm putting this needle behind that first stitch rather than into that stitch. I find this is especially useful for something where we need strength along the cast on edge. The cast on edge here is going to be the centre of the scrunchie, and that's going to hold the strength as we hold it and hang it possibly by the thread here. So I just want that to be secure there. Okay, so the needle goes behind that first stitch, yarn goes around, pull that loop through, and as before, put that stitch onto the left hand needle, in, around, and onto the needle. Behind the first stitch, yarn goes around, pull that loop through, and onto the left hand needle. So we need 16 stitches for this cast on. There we have, that's 16 stitches. Okay, and you can see me here, I can just tighten that first stitch with that short length. So we're all going. Now we're going to knit 2 rows. So this is nice and simple. We're knitting every stitch. So needle goes into the front loop of that first stitch, yarn goes around, pull that loop through, and this time instead of making a new stitch on the left hand needle, we drop that stitch from the left hand needle because it's now caught and it's secure in the new stitch that we've just made. And again, the knit stitch, needle goes into the front of that first loop, yarn goes around, pull that stitch through and drop off the left hand needle. All the way along this row we're going to knit. And you may be wondering why I'm knitting with 5.5mm needles with this thin yarn. So the reason I've chosen these needles for this pattern with the thinner yarn is that we want a loose, mouldable, finished item that is going to actually feel quite happy to be filled with water, to be scrunched around and moved as we're in the shower, and it just gives it a really loose texture. Using a slightly larger needle than the yarn suggests will always do that. And if you ever want a stiffer texture to the fabric, then you can use a smaller needle than the yarn suggests. But this yarn is usually knitted with I think it's 3.5 or 4mm needles. Let me just double check that for you. 3 3/4 needles, yes. So I'm quite happy knitting with this. With a 5.5mm needles, it actually feels really good when it's finished. Okay, so the next row, we're going to start creating the holes that really give the shape to the finished scrubby. We're going to knit the first stitch rather, and then the yarn is going to make a yarn over. So the yarn goes around the needle as if we're making a knit stitch, but we haven't actually put the needle into that stitch. So that's it, that's the knit stitch. Next one, yarn over and knit the next stitch. Yarn over and knit the next stitch. And this is what we're doing all the way along the row. Yarn over, knit the next stitch. Yarn over, knit the next stitch. Yarn over is as if we're knitting, but we're not actually putting the needle into the stitch. Then we knit the next stitch. Yarn over, knit the next stitch. All the way along the row. And this gives all of a sudden a major increase. So we have 16 stitches on the needle to start with. By increasing in between all of these stitches with a live stitch at the end of each row, we now have 31 stitches on the needle. Now this is where it might feel a bit awkward. We're going to knit the first stitch, and of course the next one is a yarn over. So we have this hole here. This loop is the yarn over, but it's not held in place by the stitch from the previous row. You just have to make sure that you do knit every single yarn over. That will give it more security. Knit the next stitch and then knit the yarn over. Knit the next stitch and then knit the yarn over. You can see here that you will get used to it. I'm doing this quite quickly. But just put the needle in behind that loop, yarn goes around, and you drop it off the left hand needle as if it was a knit stitch. Knit the next stitch and knit the yarn over. Next stitch and knit the yarn over, just as if it's a normal stitch. It's a loop, but it isn't secured in place. You just have to be careful that you don't drop any as you're going across the row. And my tip for that is to make sure the stitches are at least an inch away from the tip before you start to knit it. Then this one won't fall off. There we go. So you've got them all in place, they're all secure, and they're all ready to knit, but they're not about to fall off the end of the needle. Because this one could very easily just fall off the needle like that. Make sure it's far enough away from the tip so that doesn't happen. you will become an absolute star at knitting yarn overs while you're knitting this item. So there we go. That is the first increase row and the first security row once we've done all the increasing. You can see those holes really quite easily now. Now we're going to knit 2 more rows. So that's 2 rows, and we're on the cast on side again. Now, if you get confused about which row you're on, I just want to draw your attention to this. We have the cast on loops here, the double line of stitches, double line of yarn at the bottom here is that cast on there. On the other side, let me just show you the other side so you can compare it. Here we have not quite such obvious cast on, but then immediately those knit stitches, that's the first row. So that is the wrong side of the knitting. If you get confused about which side you're on, this one has a cleaner look to it because there's a gap between the cast on and that first knit row that we say on this side. And then we have the holes. Okay, so next we're going to do another increase row. So we've already gone from 16 stitches to 31 stitches. We're now going to increase 31 stitches to 61 stitches. We're going to knit the first stitch and we're going to do a yarn over. Knit the next stitch, yarn over. All the way along the row we're going to repeat this. Yarn over, knit 1, 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 all the way along the row. So for every stitch other than one, so for every stitch we're also increasing. And if you saw the yarn over video from a few weeks ago, you will see that yarn over is a decorative way to increase. And sometimes when we're doing yarn over, we will compensate for the fact that we've made a new stitch by doing a decrease alongside it. So we do a knit 2 together next to the yarn over. We're obviously not doing that here because we want to see the holes create that increase, which gives this the shape that we want for the shower scrub. There we go. Yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, and here we go. This is the last yarn over, and then the final stitch is knitted. So we have increased for 30 stitches, and then the last stitch is knitted. So we're going along the back again, and we're just securing all of those yarn overs in place. So I'm doing this again. I'm knitting the stitch and I'm knitting the yarn over. I'm knitting the stitch and I'm knitting the yarn over. Knit the stitch and the yarn over. Knit the stitch and knit the yarn over. I know when I'm doing these tutorials that I get comments saying, oh my goodness, you knit so fast. I can't knit that fast. Doesn't matter, you knit at your own pace and I'll knit at my pace. It doesn't really matter. So yes, don't start comparing me to you. I've been knitting for 40 years, over 40 years now, well over 40 years now. So yeah, that's just experience rather than me trying to be fast. So knit the yarn over and then knit the stitch. Knit the yarn over. And if you would like to possibly speed up your knitting, if you feel you're not quite efficient enough yet, And do go and have a look at the video that's all about different knitting styles, because you may find that the style you're using when you knit just doesn't quite suit the way that your hands are made. It's just one of those things. So I use this style because it really suits the length of my fingers, the joints. It's really comfortable for me to knit this way. So that's why it's faster than I would be knitting with other styles of knitting. So that video's over there if you want to have a look at that. Okay, so now I'm going to leave you because I'm going to knit 2 more rows. Once I've knitted those 2 rows, I'll come back and I'll show you what we're doing next. Okay, now we're on our 3rd row of increasing. So we moved from 16 to 31, and from 31 to 61. Now we're moving from 61 to 121. And this is a lot of stitches, but it's really going to give you the effect that we want. Few rows. So we're going to knit the first one, yarn over, knit, yarn over, knit, yarn over, knit, and the same thing all the way along the row, just as we did before. This increased row is exactly the same. We've just got twice as many stitches to increase in between. And then we have to knit all those yarn overs into the row, and that just takes care when you're knitting this next row. So we knit the yarn overs, then loops, but we have to treat them as stitches. Actually becomes quite automatic. You're expecting a stitch and then a yarn over, stitch, yarn over, stitch, yarn over, stitch, yarn over. There we go. Okay, so once again I'm going to knit across this row and then knit 2 more rows. Okay, we have 121 stitches on the needle, and we're now going to increase that to 241. Sounds crazy, I know, but this is going to be 241 stitches for very few rows, and then we're finishing. So you can do this, you really can. Here we go. So it's exactly the same as before. Knit 1, yarn over, 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 and all the way along the row. And then of course the last stitch is a knit. And this is where you might feel the cast on edge just stretching a bit, so keep all of the stitches bunched up nearer the tips of the needles, and it will feel a lot easier. We have more than enough space on these needles to just move them up and down and move them as much as we want to. Okay, we now have 241 stitches on the needle. That's why we need these long needles. It may not look like it as we're starting this knit, but it is useful to have these longer needles. So I'm now going to knit along the back of the increasing row and then knit 2 additional rows. So I've now finished knitting all those rows. What we need to do now is cast off. And if you like, this is where you can bring in a shorter needle. I'm certainly going to use that. It can feel a bit awkward if you're just using the very tip of a needle with the rest of it just banging about all over the place. It can feel a bit unbalanced. So I'm definitely going to cast off with a shorter needle. If you don't have a shorter needle, it doesn't matter. You can actually also use a crochet hook, but that's for another time. Okay, so what we're going to do is knit into the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and then move the first stitch over the second. Knit, pass the yarn, stitch over. Knit, pass the stitch over. Knit, pass the stitch over. And that is your casting off. And we've got to do that with all 241 stitches. It feels like a mammoth task when you start, but one stitch at a time and you will get there. Okay, so that you've got the full instructions now, you know what you're doing for the single pieces. Now you need to knit up 4 of those for the Shower Scrubbie. And like I said, if you are in under the bar, you get the kit or the pattern before the end of the week, before the Knit and Natter goes live, then you can join us. I'll get you in under the wire. So we will be finishing it next week. You need to knit up 4 pieces and then we'll sew it all together and finish it off next week. So as I said before, if you're in the TARDIS and you're watching this in the future, then you can of course go straight on to next week's video if you would like to. I'll link that below once we're all sorted and once it's gone live. And of course the Shower Scrubbie isn't your only option. The home collection went live in June and there are kits there that you can get to match. So go over there. If you've got one colour of Shower Scrubbie and you want the same colour of face cloths and makeup remover pads, then go over and get that kit as well. Right, I will see you again next week to finish off the Shower Scrubbie. So of course, if you want next week's video, then do click on the subscribe button and click on the bell. YouTube will let you know if you click the bell whenever there's a new video appearing, and it's next Tuesday that video will appear. So click on the bell, YouTube will be there for you. It will notify you when the new video appears. Give me a thumbs up if you're knitting in the knit along, and give me a thumbs up if you're going to use this with your stash. Why not, eh? All you need is the pattern, and give me a thumbs up if you're going to knit this down in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Happy knitting.